Senator Murkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you and I have had an opportunity to speak about the nominee before us at great length, and I think you have heard the concerns that I have expressed not only to you, but the concerns that I have expressed to Mrs. De Vos when she was before the committee. This nomination is very difficult for me. And it's very difficult because education is very personal to me. The quality of education that young Alaskans receive is very personal. I took it upon myself when I first came to the United States Senate. I said, I want to get to every school in Alaska, and not just the high schools where you're going to have soon-to-be voters, but every school in Alaska. And I take a personal interest in the well-being of the students and the teachers and the administrators. And so I want to know that the person that is in charge, the head of the Department of Education, has the best interests of these Alaskan kids at heart. So I've spent a lot of time with Mrs. De Vos. I've had 2 separate meetings with her, totaling close to 3 hours one-on-one. I sat through the entire hearing that we had here. I studied the answers that she gave to the written questions that I had put before her. I studied the responses that she had given many of you. I requested that she provide further commitments to me in writing, and she has done that as recently as last evening. And there are some things that I have come away after these long discussions and good study. I absolutely believe that Betsy DeVos cares deeply for kids. She does. And I think we all recognize that a woman of her position could choose to do many things with her time, her energy, and her considerable resources. And I admire her for choosing to spend them on children to be able to access a better education when she could have really chosen to do anything. But she chose to work for kids, and I admire that. I appreciate that. Now, we're sitting here today as senators preparing to deal with this whole advice and consent process that we shoulder in the Senate. The House doesn't have this charge. I have taken much the same position that Senator Collins has. My view has been that under most circumstances, a president has the right to have their nominees considered and receive a vote by the full Senate. I, too, have gone back through my tenure here in the Senate to look at how I have handled nominees as they have come before the committees on which I sit. And it's been pretty consistent for me. I have been one who has allowed the president to name his cabinet almost without exception when it comes to the committee process. For me, the concerns really have to rise to a certain level to justify voting against a nominee in committee. The one time that I did was here in this committee. This was a few years ago when I voted against the former labor secretary. This was Secretary Perez, and I voted not to move his nomination to the full Senate because he had refused to respond to a congressional subpoena. There were some very substantive questions about whether his testimony about a whistleblower's allegation were accurate. There were some real considerations, and so I voted against him in committee, and I subsequently voted against him on the floor. And there have been occasions when I have voted to move an individual out of committee. Just more recently, it was when this committee took up the nomination of Mr. King to fill out the term when Secretary Duncan was leaving. And I showed deference to President Obama in allowing him to fill out his cabinet by voting to advance Secretary King from the committee, even though I had some very serious reservations about him. And I allowed the other members of the Senate the opportunity to weigh in with their voice on the floor. But I voted against Mr. King on the floor. So let's talk about Mrs. De Vos. She's answered thousands of questions that have been put before her. Neither the Office of Government Ethics, this committee, nor I have found any substantive reason to question her name or her reputation. But I have to acknowledge the thousands of Alaskans who've shared their concerns with me about Mrs. De Vos as Secretary of Education. They have come to my office here in Washington, in Alaska, on the phones, in petitions, and their concerns center on Mrs. De Vos' lack of experience with public education and the lack of knowledge that she portrayed at her confirmation hearing. They're not satisfied that she would uphold federal civil rights laws in schools that receive federal funds. They question her commitment to students with disability rights under IDEA. They fear that the voucher programs that are intended to serve them may instead rob them of the opportunity.
Senator Murkowski, I'm trying to stay close to the 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, if you would indulge me, I just have about another minute here, because I think this is important. The concerns that have been expressed are not just being expressed in my office, but I've received certain commitments from Mrs. De Vos. She committed publicly to me and personally to me that she is not intending to seek to impose vouchers on our states. She's committed to implementing federal education laws as they're written and intended. She's committed that the focus she will give not only to Alaska but to all states will not result in undermining, eroding, or ignoring public schools, and that she will, in fact, work to support public schools, which is important to all of us. And she is committed, she'll come to Alaska in order to learn from our educators, our parents, our school board members, our tribal representatives, and really see the challenges that we face in an extremely rural place. When we talk about school choice in Alaska, if you are a small village, if you are a small remote community, there really is no choice there. So I continue to have concerns, and I think that Mrs. De Vos has much to learn about our nation's public schools, how they work, and what challenges they face. And I have serious concerns about a nominee to be Secretary of Education who's been so involved in one side of the equation, so immersed in the push for vouchers, that she may be unaware of what is broken in our public schools or how to fix it. Betsy DeVos, I think, must show all of us that she truly understands the children of all America, of rural, of urban, who are not able to access an alternative choice in education. And she must prove that she will work to help the struggling public schools that strive to educate our children when our parents can't even drive them across town to get to a better school. That she will not ignore the homeless students whose main worry is finding somewhere safe to sleep and for whom their public school is really a refuge. That she will fight for the kids whose parents really don't know how to navigate educational options, and that she will fight for every child to have a great opportunity to learn in their local public school. So I believe, Mr. Chairman, that my colleagues, on behalf of the millions of Americans that they represent, should be able to consider these questions as I have, and to be able to vote on her nomination. And so in order to do that, I will show the same respect, the same deference to President Trump's nominee as I did with President Obama's. And I will therefore vote to report Mrs. De Vos's nomination to the full Senate. But do know that she has not yet earned my full support. And when each of us have the opportunity to vote aye or nay on the floor, I would not advise that she yet count on my vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the indulgence of extra time.
Thanks, Senator Murkowski. Senator Hess.